All right, we are live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode of JP Interviews. I have myself in my ear. Hold on. I heard myself, and that is creepy. So anyway, today I have with me Amanda Miranda. She is a YouTuber and blogger, where on her channel and on her blog, you can hear her talking about politics, social issues, and herself. You can find her on Twitter at Miranda_Amanda9. And today we're going to be talking about Amanda's journey from the left and her fascination with Jordan Peterson. So anybody who knows me knows that I'm obsessed with Jordan Peterson. I think my banner right now is a picture of me, my friend John, meeting Jordan Peterson in New York. Was it a month ago now? 2 months? Time flies. So I wanted to get Amanda on here to kind of just hear her story about, her journey from the far left to something I'm guessing a little more center. How would you describe your current political leanings, Amanda?
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for having me here.
Of course.
On your amazing channel. So I would have to say centrist, because I did take a test and I looked at it and it said I was centrist. I do lean a bit more right, to be perfectly honest, but we'll definitely talk about that. Yeah, so I'm ready to begin now whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. So
I have my coffee with me.
Nice. So let's do this in kind of chronological order. You've told me that you were once far left. You were a progressive. How long ago was that? For how long was it? And can you give us kind of a story or an example, just something that really illustrates about how far left you were?
Okay, well, first of all, I remembered a year too, because it was in 2015, because I was one of those people that did vote Justin Trudeau, and I literally screamed in delight when he said, because it's 2015, and I was like, oh yeah, awesome.
So for some context, obviously Amanda is from Canada.
Yes.
And voted for Justin Trudeau. And what's the story around the because it's 2015?
Yeah, because he was asked about why he had like more diverse people on his platform, including women and everything, and he was asked that, and he said because it's 2015, and he had looked at incredibly smug about it too, like this is great, and I actually felt like it was a good thing at the time, and I actually voted for him, and I actually met him like in 2009 about.
Oh, cool.
And that's why I really felt that. And I wasn't really into politics at that time. I was still considering myself a feminist, social justice warrior. But the funny thing is, I really didn't know much about what I was fighting for. And,
right. So without any nuance, it was why do you hire such a diverse team? And his answer was because it's 2015. And
yeah, exactly.
Very shallow, which maybe it's not shallow for some people. They hear that and they're like, yeah, about time. But you remember that resonating with you.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I do believe in, it's great that people all diverse and everything, but I didn't. Now that I think of it, I think it's ridiculous. I don't think people should be hired based on their skin color or their gender. And right now, I'm really sad that I actually even voted for him. I really don't like Justin Trudeau. And the whole thing about how there should be 50% female, 50% male in a workplace. I'm just trying to look at it more realistically, and that's just ridiculous. So that's one of the reasons why I started to transition away from the left. It's actually because of Justin Trudeau, Trump's presidency.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and my take on cultural appropriation, for instance. So I have a lot of things to say about those things.
So let's dive into that a little bit. You moved away from the left because of a progressive, what is it, prime minister? What is it considered in Canada?
Prime minister.
Prime minister, because of the progressive prime minister. Like, what did he do exactly, or what exactly happened that made you go, wait a minute, I'm going to start questioning my views now?
Well, actually, he wasn't the first one I actually started to think about my views differently. It was actually because of the feminist movement. Okay. But when it comes to Justin Trudeau, one of the things I really didn't like is when he said all refugees are welcome. And I'm not trying to sound like a douche here. I'm just saying that he didn't really have a plan about it. He just said everyone's welcome. He ended up bringing in more refugees than he anticipated. And then where are they? Like, where is the plan? So that's when it started to get a bit too much. And then when he was saying he was a feminist, so-called feminist, and because I already started questioning feminism at that time, I just started questioning him in that respect as well.
So what about letting in refugees without a plan bothers you?
Well, it bothered me that it seemed more like a virtue signaling type thing. It was like, oh, I'm a good guy. I'm letting them all in. But how are we going to help them? How are they going to transition into our society? How are we going? Where are they going to be housed, for instance?
So for you, it wasn't even about like extreme vetting or anything like that. It was more like you're letting them in, but then there's no plan beyond that to actually integrate them into the society, things like that. Exactly.
And one of the reasons why I voted for him is because, like, as a Native American, I just assumed that he would be helping us, which in fact, like, that's ridiculous. He said something that really made me stop think. I looked at him in a different light, and one of the things he did say, he said he met with chiefs and other people in the reserve, and tried to get an idea of what they need. Like, and they were telling him, we need more activities for the youth. We need more youth centers. And he told them, and he said this, and there's a video of it on YouTube, where he says, yeah, I listened to them. And they told me that they need youth centers. But I don't think that's what they need. I think they need more canoe sheds. And I was just like, what is that?
He said, I listened to them. They said they need ABC, but they don't need ABC. They need this other thing.
Exactly.
That's funny.
And I felt that was really, that was just so ridiculous. It was like, that's how I looked at him in a different light, for sure.
In full.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of in summary, but that's interesting.
So that was one of the things. One of the other reasons why I started transitioning away from it was the feminist movement, because I really I really believed I was a feminist, and I felt that, well, I really wanted to engage in it, because I thought, oh yeah, women are not as considered like equal to men. And then I was like never questioning myself why, and I wasn't actually trying to do more research. All I was doing is, I want to do something with my life. I want to get out there and help people. And I thought going in on women's marches and stuff would help, would benefit women.
So just to paint the picture, how stereotypically feminist were you? Did you have blue hair? Did you do the marches? Like, give us the full, how into the feminist movement were you?
Well, I did dye my hair blue once, but it only lasted a couple of days, so that's just not a thing. But I wasn't going in that deep, because I wasn't usually the type of person that would actually go out there. I'm not like a feminazi. So, well, actually, I never went to a march, because the first time I really wanted to get into a march and get involved, I saw one of their Facebook pages. And one of the pages said, all about inclusivity, and we're all equal, and we want to be considered equal, but P.S. no men allowed on the march. And that to me didn't sound like feminism. So I was like, this is odd. And something deep inside myself said, I cannot march alongside people that would actually put that on their Facebook page.
So they explicitly uninvited men, even the men that would be for feminists or feminist men, I suppose.
Exactly. And I found that really odd. I didn't see how that was beneficial for feminism in any sort of way. So that was one thing that really got to me. And then another one was how they were saying how catcalling is some kind of misogynistic thing. But they were considering rape in the same sentence as catcalling. And
yeah, I mean, that was my concern with the Me Too movement. The day after the Me Too thing started with was Alyssa Milano, I wrote a blog post that was like, my friends were saying Me Too. I had friends that said Me Too, and then they shared their story, and they were raped, and it's like, that's awful, disgusting, gross. Why would any? But then I had other friends, and this was the majority of them, were saying Me Too because somebody made a pervy joke or somebody catcalled them, and I was like, wait a minute. If Me Too captures every bit of unwanted sexual attention from "Hey, beautiful smile" to rape, I'm worried that we're going to be conflating the two. I mean, it already kind of was, right? Because you saw everybody had a Me Too story, but you didn't know where on that spectrum it fell. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I agree. There was something about it, and then it kept getting worse. Like, it wasn't just about this. It was just it felt like a slap in the face to people who actually been through something horrible. And another thing I didn't really understand about the feminist movement is that it didn't seem like there was actually a goal at the end. And
Right.
I feel like with movements, they're supposed to die out when some goals were achieved. And once I started doing my research, I realized we have it much better than other places. For instance, like we definitely have it much better than India, for example.
Right.
So why is it that we seem to be so involved with our societies instead of helping out the ones that seriously need help? I found that really interesting. Another thing was it's just I didn't feel like my opinion on feminism was the exact same as everyone else. And it shouldn't be exactly the same. It's just I felt like we should be on board with something. The other thing I found really interesting was that for people who were victims, or could be possible victims, as they say, wouldn't they give us
rape and stuff like that?
Rape, catcalling, for instance. Wouldn't they give us something?
Did you just group the two in the same category?
No, I was just explaining about how they feel. It's that why is it that there's actual no, like, they would give us, like, if a guy comes up to you, vomit, projectile vomit, because that will actually get him to run away from you instead of raping you. It's like things like that, which is so outlandish. But then when a woman says we should defend ourselves, so it's great that you should try to learn martial arts, for example, they don't like that.
Right, so, or God forbid, guns.
Oh, exactly. And that's another thing I was wanting to talk about. It's just that anything that actually can be considered empowering to actually not be a victim. And there was a hashtag. It wasn't just Me Too. There was a hashtag called Not Me, I believe it was. And it didn't last very long, but there was a hashtag called Not Me, and it was women carrying guns and saying, I am not going to be a victim next time, or I don't want this to happen to me. Let's be strong. And I thought that was actually a good, empowering message. But they got insulted by that. And
well, because it goes against their views on guns, I guess.
Yeah, not only that, but it went on against their views of how women are less empowered and they need to be empowered. Well, this is showing that women that we can be empowered and stick up for ourselves.
So you feel like they are willingly or not, or not willingly, intentionally or not, gravitating towards ideas that keep women in that victim mentality, like into that victim category. So in a way, they're like infantilizing women.
Exactly. And when we're talking about my journey from the left, it's not only with feminism, it's about with other things as well, like the body positivity movement, like fat acceptance. A lot of it has to do with staying a victim. So why aren't they encouraging women to be healthier and lose weight? No, they're just saying you're perfect the way you are. But that's not realistic. We all have a chance to kind of push ourselves to be better than what we are right now. And like I said in one of my blog posts, actually, that as someone who actually had problems with undereating, I found it interesting that the fat acceptance movement does very similar things to what the underweight community did when I was younger. They would give us tips on how to stay underweight. They wouldn't come together and be like, hey, let's try to get away from this and be healthy.
They would tell you that you're fine just the way you are, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Or giving us tips on how to get even like more underweight. It's like, it seems more like that's what the fat acceptance movement is doing too. Instead of saying, hey, let's try to get together and not only feel positive about who we are, but treat our bodies like they should be treated. So yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, no, I think the body positivity thing is strange. There was a tweet not too long ago, and I think it was a comedian of all things. Basically, it was the UK Cancer Research Twitter. They posted something. It was just a reminder because they're a cancer research team. They're saying, hey, obesity is the #2 like highest correlated thing with cancer, leading cause of cancer. And somebody came in and retweeted, it was a blue check on Twitter, and she said, this is disgusting, you should take this tweet down, you're fat shaming people. And it's like, no, we're literally telling you that obesity can kill you. And one of the ways in which it can kill you is it can give you, you are at a higher risk of getting cancer. That's something people should know. they can make their own choices knowing that, right? But the idea that just telling people, hey, you are putting your health at risk is somehow fat shaming and not okay, and you should delete that and don't tell people that, is, in my opinion, taking it a little too far, right?
That was actually Sophie Hagen or Hagen. I don't know how to say her name.
And is she a comedian?
Comedian. And yeah, exactly. And it's true. Even with like, for instance, if you have a friend and you're both depressed, and all you do is complain about being depressed,
right?
And you say, "Oh, well, this happened to me. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened today. Are you gonna be okay? Yeah, I'll be fine. Well, feel better." It's like there's no actual like, let's try to help each other. It's not like two friends saying, "Hey, let's go get out and jog. Let's do something."
Yeah, you might be affirming the wrong things.
Yeah, but that's how I felt when it came to anything on the left, is that it was more of a, let me comfort you and treat you like you're fine just the way you are, instead of let's try to help each other out. And that's how I felt with a lot of things.
Right.
One of the other things I noticed is that with the, and I talk about this often, is like the racism against white people. Like, there's no such thing as reverse racism, and you can't be racist against white people, bollocks. And one of the things
I agree that there's no such thing as reverse racism. It's just racism.
Exactly. One of the things that really got to me is when I was considered like an SJW of some type. I had a friend that would say openly disturbing things about Black people, and guess what I did? I stopped being friends with him. But then about a year or two after that, I was friends with someone who would say openly disturbing things about white people, and I didn't take it at the same context as I did with my other friend.
So I'm curious, what kinds of things did your first friend say, and what kinds of things did your second friend say?
Oh, well, the first friend would say stuff like, "Oh, I feel like there's too many N-words in the community.
Right.
I can't stand seeing them." Yeah. And pretty much like the same thing without the slur from my other friend.
Right. So they would just say too many white people around.
Yeah, and white people, there's too many white people, and you should, you're okay, you're great, but like white people shouldn't be doing it. And it was like a lot of virtue signaling as well, which I found really interesting. It's like that's something I can't stand, because I don't want people to look at me as a person of color. I want people to see me as a human being.
Right.
I want people to see me as Amanda, and that's something I found really interesting about what Kanye said. It was like, I'm not Black, I'm Kanye. It's sure we have. Yep. I know I had to mention that, but yes, I am what I am. Like, for instance, I'm bisexual, I'm Native American, but I'm Amanda. So,
right. Like all those other things are like 20 degrees away from the more interesting stuff about you. Like you happen to be Native American, but you're Amanda. You YouTube, you blog, you do a lot of other things that make you who you are. And then okay, yeah, I'm Native American. That's whatever. But to an SJW, it's like, well, no, I'm Black, and then I'm a software engineer and this other stuff. Yeah.
And I have to think like what they consider a Native American should think. And I found that really interesting as well. That's one of the reasons I started getting away from it, especially with the cultural appropriation thing. It's like I had to be outraged. And when it came to cultural appropriation, I was outraged when I saw people dressed with like the headdress on. But when I look back at it, I realized that was false outrage. That was like full outrage for me. Because now that I look at it, I'm looking back at how I actually felt, and I didn't feel that actual offense. I did not feel offended. It just seems like someone was writing my script except for myself. So it was someone writing to me saying, Amanda should be offended by this. So then I acted out. But I'm actually deep down inside not offended.
Right. You don't care if somebody's wearing a Indian headdress, but because someone told you ought to be, you thought, okay, well, let me try to figure out what should be offending me. And you just kind of went with it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. And that's what I did with a lot of things, but it was really there with the cultural appropriation thing. And now that I look at it, I'm like, well, I wasn't that offended by it. And now that I openly admit that, they still get upset because they're thinking I'm whitewashed or something, because I'm not easily offended by it.
Now you're a sellout, so congrats.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's very toxic in my way of thinking, because if that's the case, that was with everything. Why would you be friends with someone who manipulates you or that makes you feel like you should think a certain way? Yeah, it's like, why can't you just be yourself?
I've been entertaining this thought in my head. I want to write about it and really explore it. But I think a relationship with this version of the far left that we are currently talking about. I understand not everybody on the left behaves this way. Not all lefties, in case anybody's watching. But I do think a relationship with the left is like an abusive one. There's a lot of this, you can be anybody you want to be except your own person, right? As long as you fit within their little box, you have freedom. Yeah, I don't know. I think about this stuff a lot too.
It's also, just to add, that it makes you feel worse. And I'm not saying like I'm at the best part of my life right now, because I still need, it's still a journey for me. But I was more depressed, more easily angered by things when I was like offended by things, technically. And I think the reason why is because, like I said, I wasn't writing my own script. I was doing everything by their book. And that can depress anybody, because in the end, you realize subconsciously that it's not really you. Like you're not in control of yourself. You're being controlled by these people. Like you're a puppet.
Right.
And I feel more,
as Kanye might suggest, you're a slave.
Yeah, exactly. And then people get offended by that too. But like, let's think about this. It's like I finally feel free enough to actually be who I am and think my own mind, instead of being like faux outraged because everyone else is outraged.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
actually,
one of the.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay, I was going to ask you. It's kind of a two-part question. So one, do you feel like you kind of alluded to it, where you seem less depressed than you used to be? So is it safe to say you feel a positive improvement in your mental health since becoming more, just being able to talk about your own ideas and not having to live the ways of the left? Is that fair to say?
Partially, yes. I think I was kind of quiet at one point, especially before my YouTube channel, where I was actually afraid to talk about it, because there's just so many people I knew that would screech if you even said anything positive about Trump, for instance. And that kind of scared me. And something clicked in my head, and I said, I need to start a YouTube channel, not only for my anxiety, because I have a lot of anxiety with people staring at me, etc., but I need to speak my truth. Like, I'm sounding like Kanye, but I need to speak
your truth.
Speak my mind.
Yep.
And that helped me improve. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I felt bad yesterday, for instance, but I have those moments, but they feel less now that I'm sticking to myself and my beliefs, and I'm not afraid to put myself out there and stand up for what I believe in.
Right. Yeah, good. And I'm trying to remember what the second part of that was going to be. I don't remember, so we'll just move on. I had another like interesting question from what you said, but I lost it. I should have jotted it down. Okay, so actually, I just remembered. Okay, so basically, can you compare now? I'm guessing you've made a lot of friends that would not regard themselves as progressive or far left. So whether they're center or conservative, can you kind of speak to what it's like to have conversations with, or to be friends with them? And that includes when you disagree. So how does it usually play out now when you disagree or have an interesting conversation with a conservative or a center, or just a liberal that's not far left?
Well, I don't want to put everyone in the same box, but from what I've been through so far, I've noticed that it's easier to talk to people who are more right-leaning. For instance, like I have more friends now. Everyone's like subbing to me or following me are more like centrist or right, and I feel like they're more calmer than anyone on the left. If I have an argument with someone on the left, there's like, I even wrote this on my Twitter, and it got pretty popular. I just wrote this like the list of things that a leftist does when they're arguing with you, and I noticed that there's more name calling on the left side than there is on the right. And I'm sure someone on the left would think completely different if they're talking to someone on the right. But in my particular case, I've been called so many things under the sun so far from a leftist. But if there's a conservative, they would actually say, well, I kind of agree with what you said, but here's my side. And then I would like jump in and say, well, this is what I feel. And they're like, oh, look, take a look at this. And that's pretty much how our conversation would go. But every time I talk to someone on the left, the conversation would go, "You're an ableist. How dare you?" So what you're saying is Kathy Newman style, and I'm just like, how can I have a deep conversation with you? And what I noticed as well, when I speak to anyone on that is conservative, for instance, they are more willing to ask me questions and try to actually understand where my point of view is coming from, whereas the left immediately jumps to an assumption of how I feel.
Yeah, it's interesting because I thought about this, and I remember, I voted for Obama twice. I was going to vote for Bernie. Like, for me, being really not progressive is pretty recent. But what was I going to say? I keep doing this. Because you had just said how when you talk to conservatives, they are more. Oh, so what I was going to say is I feel like when Obama was president, I would run into like the angry conservative person all the time. You know what I mean? But then again, my views were very lefty. So I don't know if we were just kind of talking over each other and then somebody would get frustrated and pissed and yelling at and then we'd start yelling, or if it just kind of switched because right now the conservatives, their guy is in office, at least in the United States. But you're from Canada and it's not that way. It's the other way around, right? Like the liberals guy is in office. Isn't that fair to say?
Yeah.
And even with that, you're saying it's a lot easier to talk to and get along with non-progressives when it comes to disagreements. So what's like a liberal view that you have that a lot of your center or conservative friends don't have?
Oh, let's see. I gotta say, maybe
I can name some categories and you can tell me if any of them are lefty.
No, actually, I was gonna say, for a lot of progressives, they're more pro-choice. And I know a lot of conservatives that they do get a bit insulted if you're pro-choice at times, and they can get really, and I can totally get that. Right. But I do lean towards pro-life. It's just I tend to see the side of pro-choice as well. So they can get easily offended by that. But for some reason, if I still talk about that, they're still able to still calmly show their side.
So when you make a case for pro-choice, your conservative friends.
Yeah, but if I make a case for pro-life, it's just like I would get bombarded by things from the left saying like, no, but like you got to look at this. Can you understand? And one of the things I noticed too, and I think it's the way our brains work actually, is that they really work differently, because I see that like when you're saying about Ben Shapiro saying facts don't care about your feelings, but the left would say, but feelings. And it's like, well, I get feelings. Feelings are, they always say feelings are valid. Well, yes, to the individual, they are valid. But you have to understand that facts are there. You can't just dismiss facts because of your feelings. And I find that really interesting how they're so easily able to do that. Whereas conservatives, I think that's the reason why they think like, for instance, like if they think like Ben Shapiro, they're less likely to screech at you because they're trying to take the facts more than their feelings.
Right. Now, I mean, I think on some topics, conservatives will only take the facts that, well, I mean, everybody does this, where we only take the facts that support our feelings. But at least they're presenting facts, and at least they're talking in terms of facts. Now, obviously, there's plenty of conservatives that dip into like the religious, and no matter what the topic is, they're like, well, in verse 3, and they use their Bible to justify whatever they're, instead of facts that we can all share and agree on. But yeah, I agree that like now it does seem to be my center and conservative friends that are more willing to use facts. And I have some lefty friends that like to cite things. I do software engineering, so a lot of my lefty friends are engineers. So they do have a sense for they do have an appreciation for facts, thankfully. But they are still, among my friends, some of the first to kind of pull what you described, where it's like, so what you're saying is, and then some really absurd absolute, you know what I mean? Showing that they have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah, a lot of it too is that when they do put out something, it doesn't seem, how do I explain it? It's like, it seems so far-fetched. So it's not just like, this is how I feel. It's like, well, this is how I feel. Here's a bit of facts, and then I'm gonna make up some this outlandish statement at the end of my sentence. And I see that a lot, and it just doesn't make sense to me at all. It's like, I can't take your tweet seriously if you say something like, well, this is why I feel that we need gun control. Here are some factual evidence. What do you guys think? It's more like, now I gotta take away guns now. It's like, well, it's like you kind of made like this huge thing.
Right.
For example, I was discussing and this is interesting too, how it comes into feelings again. Sorry if I ramble on, but
Go
there
for it.
was
It's your interview.
there was someone on Twitter that got upset with me because one of the things I tweeted was about this kid in my high school, and I talked about how he was disabled and everyone treated him over the top, and like with like overtly compassion when it was not needed, and he immediately assumed, and this is like the Lil Yanny thing, I guess, but like he immediately assumed I meant I'm not compassionate and I don't care about his life and that he shouldn't be considered to have all this like this love to him. And it's like, that's not what I meant. I said I don't like, it feels too forced, and they're treating him completely different
Right. It feels
instead of treating him equal. Yeah.
Right. They're not. Yeah, I got you on that. I think the same way with, he's disabled. He's not an infant, basically.
Yeah, and he was getting to push this out there as well. He was getting help from someone in like some kind of social worker, and the person was giving him the answers. They wasn't trying to like kind of get him to.
You mean like for a test? Like
oh yeah,
on a
homework tests, and the kid was getting on honor roll, and while there's kids actually working their ass off to be on honor roll, this kid was getting all the answers given to him just because he was disabled, and it's like. Then this person immediately went to, so what you're saying is we should just get rid of ramps? And I'm like,
we should get rid of ramps? What?
Yeah, like how did you get to
in
ramps?
What way
to
was
me
this person disabled? Was it physical or mental?
Physical.
Well, now I'm even more.
That's what I don't get. This person had a wheelchair.
Okay.
How did we jump from disabled into someone who can't, who has a learning disability? I get if someone's there to help them. If that would make more sense if he had a learning disability. Yeah, but if he has that physical disabled, why is he getting the answers given to him? So I was just
that's not even. And the thing is, if you're getting answers given to you, that's not even really helping. That's cheating.
Exactly.
And screw that it's cheating. It's doing the opposite of helping you because you're not learning. You're getting good grades without having to learn anything, which is a bad habit to feed. You don't want to feed that habit.
Exactly. And now that we're talking about that made me think of something else. Okay, that's why I can't stand when they're talking about there should be 50% male, 50% male, and that there should be more diverse people. It's like, am I getting hired because I'm good for the job? Or are you hiring me because you feel sorry for me because I'm a minority? And that's not beneficial for us, because in the end, are we really going to be proud of our achievement because we got that job because we worked our ass off, or we just got it because I don't want to leave them out? That's going to make us feel worse. And that's why I don't like when they do that with anyone who has a disability, who is a minority, who's a woman. It's like, I want to get the job just like everyone else got the job.
So you believe in meritocracy?
Yeah, it's so crazy how people can't seem to comprehend that, and they think immediately you're some kind of sexist person.
Oh yeah, there's posts online about how meritocracy is a dog whistle for racism, and it's like, listen to what you're saying, because if you think that if left up to merit, white people will always win, then you are a white supremacist.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean? Like, it's the weirdest thing for somebody to say.
What's interesting too is that they keep saying how women should have a choice, etc. But let's imagine that we live in a city where there's 80% men out there and like 20% female. How the hell are we going to get 50% men, 50% women in every single job?
Well, so we have about 50-50 men, women in society. But if you look at engineering, the software engineer graduate rate is about 20-80, 20 female, 80 male. And Google is opening, they're very open about it. They want their engineering teams to approach 50-50. Now, their reasons are different. They say, our products are for everybody, so we want everybody represented. But it's like, get more women into engineering. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's a better fight. Show women that, hey, engineering's fun. You can learn how to program an app, build a website. Once that's 50-50, then you'll find 50-50 in the workplace. But right now, if the graduates are about 20-80 and you're trying to force 50-50 in the workplace, it's obvious you are doing that by not letting some men in who are really damn good, and then letting women in who are just not as good, which you know, it's their company. They can make the decisions they want, but I think it's not a good idea.
Yeah. And to add, I don't feel like it's something that doesn't make sense to me, because we have that choice now. It's just that women, I'm pretty sure women are just not wanting to take that because they're not interested in it. So you can't force women to be interested in a certain job field.
Right.
You know, more women might be likely. Why is it that more women take aesthetics, for example, instead of men? It's like, well, you can't force men to be interested in aesthetics. It's like we have the freedom of choice to do whatever the hell we want with our lives and our civilization. So how is that? It's like I'm looking towards equality, but not really, because you don't have that equality. I have to force you into liking this because you're a woman. It's like, that's not how it works.
Yeah,
So
I feel like the equality that the left wants is one where you always need somebody at the dials twisting and turning things forever. Where the equality that the right wants is like, hey, it's designed, you could put it to the side and then go do shit. Like actually go and build stuff and invent stuff and work on stuff and raise families and do all that. And because we have a good foundation, everyone has access to the top of the competence hierarchy, right? Where if you're a lefty, I just feel like, oh, well, this got dialed up too high. Like what's going to happen in 10 years when there's just way too many women leaders or way too many like indigenous leaders? What if the indigenous people went above the black people? Now are the indigenous people oppressors, and we have to turn that dial again and let the black people become a little equal or a little higher than indigenous people? Like it just seems like a never-ending, what I would call busy work. You're just giving these dials to a bunch of people who think they know what they're doing to constantly try to fine-tune equality. You know, it's just weird to me.
Yeah, and I find it strange that when people say only white people can be racist, like systemic racism, it's like, well, you're basically saying that only people from China can be racist, but once they leave China, they're suddenly not racist. It's like, what are you trying to?
You're talking about like only Chinese people in China could be racist.
Exactly. And so, what are they trying to establish there? Because that makes absolutely no sense. It's like I don't suddenly become not racist once I take a plane. Like it's like you lift off in a plane. It's like
they've
halfway there.
They've replaced the word racism with to mean systemic racism, and even systemic. Like, what does that mean? Because systems are complex, right? And if you look at our legal system, our legal system is not racist at all. If anything, our legal system, if it's racist, it's against it's against whites, because there's tons of laws on the book that are meant to service non-whites that don't apply to whites, you know, affirmative action kind of things and policies of that sort. But so this idea that systemic racism, I think a better word for it would just be, I mean, I don't perceive the same thing that they perceive, but at least you could just say like cultural racism or something, right? Because systemically, our legal system is not racist. It's probably you can't get less racist except for removing all the affirmative action policies that benefit minorities and underrepresented groups, right? It's very interesting. Let's take a 1 minute break, not going anywhere, but I see right now that there are 5 people watching at least, because it says 5 people. I wish for you guys to type something in the chat and to ask questions, because at the end of the interview, we're going to try to get through the questions and answer them. So if you have any questions for Amanda, or myself, throw them in there. If you just want to say hi, throw it in there. I'll say hi back. Yeah, so going back to the interview, let's actually transition now to Jordan Peterson, because that's one of the things that you and I have in common, right? We really appreciate what Jordan Peterson's doing. We think he's a brilliant man. What drew you to Jordan Peterson initially? And yeah, let's just start there. What drew you to Jordan Peterson initially?
Well, it was actually in the very beginning. I knew about him, but I wasn't completely involved in his work. But when I saw
when you say when is the beginning? I'm sorry.
When they were immediately calling him transphobic and protesting outside the University of Toronto, just because.
So this was the Bill C-16 stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I found it really interesting that it was actually what Lauren Southern came there and started interviewing people. And one of the things I saw was she asked someone, will you be willing to discuss things with Jordan Peterson? And the girl said, oh, no way. Or the girl or boy, I don't know.
Did you just assume their gender?
Yeah, I have no idea. Judging from the protests, I guess. But she was like, well, no. And Lauren was like, well, why not? And she said, I'm too afraid. And I had to laugh because I was like, what is so, why it is so afraid of this? So I started looking him up. I'm like, if you're so afraid of him, what is this guy doing? So I looked up about it and I was like, seriously, this is what you're afraid of? And
this gentle man that sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, like, and like I said before, I'm really open to dialogue, and I found it really interesting that no one was willing to talk to him and actually express themselves like adults. And instead, they would just rather go outside and actually not know. And that's when you say know your enemy, right? It's like, well, you kind of have to know him. What is he all about? You just hear one thing, and then you just go into a little hissy fit.
Right.
And it's not like because I just found it interesting. So after that, I started to kind of like not really get into him, but started to read up about it. And I think one of the things that actually did get to me is the Kathy Newman video, because that actually helped me realize, well, I have to stop screeching myself. Sometimes I get easily offended when I talk to people as well. And I have to admit, I mean, I come from the left. It comes with the package. And recently I started to, there's one thing I really liked what he said. He said, listen to people. I'm not quoting exactly, but he said, listen to people as if you want to, you know, if they're saying something
that it's like listen to people as though they have something they can teach you. Something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I do now. That like when I talk to people, I actually ask them questions, and they get off by that, which I find it really funny. That's not wrong.
Cool. You should probably do a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, but when I talk to them, I would ask them questions, and they would kind of get not really offended, but they would get put off, and they would go, I can't educate you. I don't have time to educate you. I don't have time to look up this factual evidence. And they always say that. They always say they don't have time to look up something. So it's like, why are you saying something, but you're not willing to back it up? So I found that really interesting. But it's not because I'm trying to prove a point with them. I'm trying to really see where they're coming from. I want to maybe learn something from them, but I'm not given that chance.
Right.
That's when I get frustrated. And that's something that drove me to Jordan Peterson, is that he kind of made me realize, like, that I have to calm myself as well when I talk to people. And he was very calm during the Kathy Newman interview. Yeah. And he made me realize as well that there's different aspects to, like, the gender wage gap, for instance. That really got to me too. Because as someone, like I said, I have borderline personality disorder, for anyone who doesn't know. And talking about politics really helped me not see black and white. I really do see black and white a lot. So what I liked about Jordan Peterson is that he expanded in different places, like an octopus, for crying out loud, with his legs. It wasn't just, well, there's this. He's like, well, women are getting paid less, for instance. Well, let's try to figure out why. Let's break this down instead of just assuming that it's something else. And, like, for instance, a lot of feminists will say, well, it's assuming because it's sexist. But they're not assuming that there's other reasons why, other factors. And I found it really interesting about him. And that made me realize that I should start doing something similar. That's another thing that got me into him.
Hey, does, they refer to the gender wage gap myth. I was going to say, Peterson is very educated on all forms of mythology, it would seem, including the gender wage gap one.
What got me too is that he said he helps women learn how to have assertiveness and on a job, for instance. Why are people still upset with him when he's actually trying to help people? And that's when we go into the self-help book. Just looking at him talk about different things as someone who suffers from anxiety, for instance, and depression. When he talks about it, he's actually helping people. And I find it funny that people are against someone that's actually trying to help people. And that's when we go back to how the left thinks, is that the victim mentality.
Right.
It kind of made me realize I don't think they want people to get better. Maybe in their mind they're thinking that's true, but it doesn't point that way when they're getting upset over a man that has a self-help book and that is talking about how he's helping women be more assertive and how he's helping people say, you should listen to them and you should try to engage with them, try to understand people. Like, let's get out there. And like what? This is just so strange to me. And that made me more, as time went on, I was more and more interested in what he had to say, because of people kept trying to silence him. And they don't realize that that's actually helping them, helping him, in fact. Because the more they silence him, the more people like me are going to get tired of silencing him and want to learn more about him. Go online, listen to him, get the book.
Mean, I'm butchering the quote, but like, you cut a man's tongue out, everybody wants to know what he wanted to say. You know, it's like, why'd you do that? He must be saying something that you're afraid of. Because, you know, people don't realize when you say something that's ridiculous. Here's the thing. Trump has said many, many ridiculous things, right? And every time he does, what do? They broadcast it. They let everyone know, hey, guys, did you hear what Trump said? Did you see what he tweeted? Blah, blah, blah. They make it go, right? But then somebody like Milo, actually, when Milo says something that's completely ridiculous, everybody broadcasts it. But when he says something that's interesting, they want to silence him, right? Well, if it's as stupid as you think, why aren't, you know, if you really think this idea is a bad idea and it's silly, why not broadcast it and show everybody how silly Peterson is being for thinking that men and women are any different? If it's such a silly idea, make fun of him like you do everyone else. But I don't think they think it's a silly idea. I think they realize somewhere in there that there's merit to it. Pun intended. Well, is that even a pun? Well, anyway, there's merit to the argument, and they would prefer to silence him so that they don't have any kind of competition with their worldview, you know?
That's exactly how I see it. And I've seen that with a lot of people. And there was even one time I actually defended him on Twitter because someone said he was a transphobic person and all this crap. And I said, well, how is he transphobic? All he said, he wasn't saying that he wasn't going to use, he even made it clear at one point. He said,
yeah, he was on a TV station with Theron Meyer, and they asked, will you use her pronoun? And he goes, yeah. And then he did.
Exactly. He said, if you come up to me and say, listen, I consider myself whatever, and this is how I want to be addressed. Can you please address me this way? He will say yes. He said he doesn't want it in law. And it's a lot of with respect as well. You can't just push people to go, well, you have to respect me. It's like, what is he? If you can't even say who I am, my name, how do you expect me to respect you? So I find that really interesting that something along the way, that's what I'm starting to feel, something along the way in their lives told them they have to immediately be respected. It wasn't like you have to earn respect. So I think it might have to do with their parents or something, because I just find it really interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are entitled, and I think something that people aren't really talking about is the role of dads in a family. You know, dads, it used to be moms took care of the kid and pampered the hell out of them, and you know, she was the alpha of the house while dad was at work, so she got to lead and do things the way a mother would. But then dad would come home, and if there was a problem, you know, he basically rationally tried to solve them. And if it was something that didn't need to be dwelled on, he squashed it. And he said, shh, you know, look, it's not a big deal. Somebody called you a name. Too bad. Get your grades up. You know, stuff like that. That's things that dads do. But I think for the last decade, at least, probably the last 3, you know, you have moms and dads both working. So what happens? They come home and they try to share those responsibilities too, like the disciplining and the pampering. A lot of these households, there is no dad, right? Or there's many dads, like many dad figures that come through because, you know, I'm not religious, but this is kind of the underlying substance of the complaint around the deterioration of marriage. And it's that you do not have a proper or a standard mother figure and father figure in the household anymore. And I think if your society is largely feminine, or if your household is largely feminine, or if your upbringing is largely feminine, you are going to expect people to pamper you and people to attend to your every need. Because that's, I mean, if you find this offensive, you could tell me and I'll definitely reconsider it. But that's how I think women are, more so than men, you know, and they can be and they should be, in my opinion, which sounds, somebody's listening to this right now going, oh, that's so sexist. But I'm sorry. As a guy, when I court a woman, she gets to pick me. I don't pick her at the end of the day. You know, this is generally the case. So a little bit of pampering. If one of us is going to get it, it's going to be her, not me.
Yeah, I actually am more of a traditionalist, which is really interesting. I really do believe that, and I'm not saying women should stay at home and men should be working. I actually do
Yeah, I
believe
don't
that.
say they should be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very valid way to run a family.
Yeah, because when they're both working, it's like, who's there to actually take care of them? As long as there's someone there, I don't care if it's the man staying at home and the woman working. I really do believe that when people are married, it's not just, oh, let's get married and let's have kids. That's it. They have to try to figure out what each of their role is in the family, and how is that going to benefit their kids. And that's how I don't see a lot of people doing that. And that's why I see a lot of kids and they grow up and they go to university and they still get their way there too, because apparently you can't really discipline a child anymore. That's how I see it. A lot of kids, like, I call them kids, but like a lot of people in university are just getting in the way of yelling at their professors. And I'm just like, how is that possible?
Man, as far as I'm concerned, if I was a professor at a college and some dude was in my face like this yelling, he's getting pushed at least. You know what I mean? Because if some dude was in your face, spit coming out of their mouth, yelling like that, I mean, out in the street or at a bar, you're both adults. They are getting there. You know what I mean? Like you're not allowed to be in someone's physical space and expect immunity from any kind of physical altercation, you know?
And if they expect that they can act that way in the universities, I'm pretty sure they act that way at home, and they're most likely gonna think they can get away with it out on the street. So universities don't seem to be teaching them the correct way of, and neither are their parents. That's what makes me sad. And when someone like Jordan Peterson comes out and actually discusses this, they get upset because it's going against the very thing they can get away with. They're getting away with, and that's what a lot of people do. I mean, for instance, if I got away with, I guess I'm not really that type of person, but generally, if my parents allowed me to get away with a bunch of stuff, I would do it because I can get away with it. That's how a lot of people think. They can get away with it. And when he was talking about the gender pronouns, and people were saying how you're my enemy because you're not going to use my gender pronoun, that's another thing I didn't understand. What I would like to add about that is they were crying. They were upset, like physically and emotionally upset, because a 57-year-old teacher was telling them, I don't feel like your gender pronouns would do you any good in this world.
Right.
And they just proved his point right there. You know how? Because they were crying because of what he said. He's right. He's absolutely right. They just proved his point, because right then and there, they just proved that they can't live in the real world without crying like babies. And I'm not saying like I'm like this tough like person, but like he has a point. He doesn't care who you to consider yourself. But if you're gonna go out there expecting everyone else to agree with you and everyone else has to cater to you that way, and if they don't, you cry and make a huge fuss, you're not going to get any further in society.
Yeah, I think the expectation is to not have to take responsibility for your own thoughts and actions anymore. Like if you have a thought or want to behave a certain way that is unorthodox or just not the status quo, just go do it. You know, take responsibility for the consequences. That's fine. I think these people want. I think a lot of people want to change what the status quo is. They want to change what is accepted and what is normal, but they want to do it without having to suffer any of the consequences. They want to convince everybody to let them do it, and then they'll go do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It's very strange.
And the thing about that is, I don't even care to say to not be offended or whatever. You need therapy if you are going to cry because someone said he instead of she, for example. You need to do that.
I mean,
because my sister,
seriously, like if you have a point to make, but you also come across as somebody who's mentally ill, that point is going to be conflated with mental illness, and nobody's going to take it seriously. This is my criticism to the trans community. If the trans community wants to be taken seriously, they got to get those suicide rates down. They got to get those, they got to stop being babies when they go out there and they try, I don't know of many trans CEOs or trans people that are just doing their thing because they're not on Twitter complaining, but I'm sure they exist. And those people, as soon as those trans people start doing things that other people find respectable, I think the trans community is going to be accepted, just like the gay community is now accepted, you know?
But you realize that they, like, for instance, look at Ella and Blair. They get so easily offended by them being successful and them being true to who they are. And I find that really interesting. It seems a lot with a lot of other communities.
But you're
it's
saying
like, well,
Blair gets easily offended?
No, I'm saying people who don't like them get easily offended.
Oh, so people
for
who don't
instance,
like Blair get easily offended, even though she's a trans woman.
Yeah, so if she doesn't fit their narrative, like she doesn't think the way they do,
Mhm.
and instead of just going, good for her, she has a boyfriend now, she's on here, she's doing what she great. They're not thinking of it that way. They're thinking, oh, she's an enemy of us because she doesn't think like we do. And I find that really interesting. Sometimes I feel like that's a problem with the Native community as well. It's like, again, we're individuals. I don't like how we're always considered a victim, and we need to feel a certain way, and we have to act a certain way because, and then in the end, it's like the white man's fault, or it's like the man's fault or something, right? Because I'm upset. It's like, no, you know, Blair, Ella, Miss London, they're proving that it's not everyone else's fault. It's them.
Ella Grant,
it's them, right? It's them putting themselves forward. Them doing what they feel is right. And
yeah, if you guys don't know who we're talking about, Blair White is a pretty popular conservative trans woman on YouTube, and what Amanda's saying is absolutely correct. That like because she's conservative, because she supports Donald Trump, or because she has more right-leaning views, the progressives completely abandoned her, consider her a sellout, which is exactly the same thing you hear in, you know, with Kanye, the Black community, Candace Owens, and I guess you're saying even in the Indigenous community, correct?
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, our community is not like super huge or anything, but I feel a lot of people are more insulted by anything cultural appropriating in their eyes, and someone like me that's not. It's just apparently I'm not Native enough because I don't feel so close to my culture. It's like,
right.
Well, it's like, look, it's like, why is it that we're not going to get any farther if we keep blaming other people for how we're down? And they can say it's systemic or anything, or it's the white man's fault because he placed us here or not. It's like, well, right now we're in the present. We are in charge of ourselves. Mm-hmm. So what are we going to do for ourselves to push ourselves forward? That's as simple as I can put it. And I don't see how we keep blaming other people for the past. Not saying the past was like nothing. The past was horrible.
Yeah.
But should we allow the future to be as well?
Yeah, I'm all on board with this whole, you know, the past doesn't exist. I mean, it did exist, but it's gone. So why are we focusing so hard on it? Or a better question, like, why are we focusing on it harder than we are the future? Makes zero sense to me.
You know why? Because they just still think things are happening. It's like, well, for instance, slavery was like, I don't know how long ago. I mean, and we're still acting like it's there. Mm-hmm. And we're still acting like we're forced to be maids in someone else's house and forced to do their work. And we can't touch their hand because we're Black, for instance. So we can't do that. It's like, well, no, we are in charge of ourselves now.
People don't realize there are things that our culture accepts as perfectly normal and acceptable today that in 100 years, people are going to look back today and be like, oh my God, did you know they used to work 40-hour work weeks? You know, and then watch, it's going to be white people demanding reparations because they basically, by society and by other white people, I suppose, were forced to work 40-hour work weeks and stuff. And, you know, maybe the future, it's like 10-hour work weeks.
If we want to be,
it's hard for us to imagine that. But if the future did turn out that way, today would look horrific. But we don't see that today because we're in it. And I think that's the same thing about the days of slavery. They didn't really see that. And it doesn't justify it. It doesn't make it right. But as I think Peterson points out, and I think who else? A lot of people point this out. United States obviously has some awful things in its history, but they were also the first to correct it. We started you know, today we have the internet to make things go viral, but by getting rid of slavery, which we had an internal war and the right side won, thankfully, we started a movement, and across the world, people started getting rid of slavery. but there's no gratitude for that. There's no, people want reparations, but they don't ever consider that as a reparation. It's just a very interesting, I find it interesting that different people focus on very different things,
I actually find reparations assaulting because these are people that haven't been through what our ancestors have been through,
right?
Haven't experienced it at all. Maybe just get a lot of, like, maybe a few microaggressions their way, and then they say, "Oh, send me money, white boy." It's like, no, it's like, you haven't been through what our ancestors have been through. You haven't been a slave. You haven't been forced to work for a white person and treat it like crap.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you have your own life to live. We're in 2018. It's not perfect, but it's way better than what our ancestors have gone through.
Scott Adams has a pretty atypical view on this. He says, look, let's just give reparations to Black people in America, but not just all Black people. We give it to the poorest. We give it to Black people under a certain socioeconomic status. One time, give it. And that's it. That way it could be in the past. Just you know what I mean? Like, I think he's kind of about putting things behind us. And who knows? It could have a positive effect overall. I'm okay with it. I don't want to set a precedent that says, well, they got reparations, now this group needs reparations, and then that group, you know what I mean? And I don't really agree with the reparation on the surface, but I do agree that if we're going to do it, it can't just be skin color. It's got to be something, because obviously not all Black people. I don't really think. Well, that's a controversial opinion. I don't really think that the thing keeping any Black people down today is necessarily the past. I think it's I think it's more the obsession with the past and bad upbringing and unwillingness to kind of adopt a culture that would actually see them succeed. Chicago, the culture of Chicago is not the culture of the greater Illinois area. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? I think if the culture changed, you would see a huge increase in prosperity, even in Chicago. But that's my view.
Yeah, I actually feel similar. Like, look, we had money given to us. Native Americans do get money. It really also depends on the reserves. Like, I had a friend that if she went to school full time, she got $1,000 a month. Kind of loud.
She got paid $1,000 a month for going to school?
Full time, yeah.
Jesus.
For her reserve thing.
And you don't pay for, and she doesn't, do you pay tuition in Canada?
I guess it depends. Like, yeah, but like I've never been to a university or anything, so I don't know how that. And oh yeah, that's another thing I was gonna add.
Go for it.
There is services for, like, to getting Native Americans in college and university. So there's a specific area to get them into college quicker than a white person, for instance. So it's like, well, if you do well and you go in, if you're Native American, they can have you most likely to get in. So it's like, well, I want to be treated like everyone else. Why the hell am I given an Indian status card? Why am I getting these little services here? Why am I getting this? And why am I, and you know why? And it's so easy to do that. And it's so easy for people to continue being racist against us, because it's so simple to say, hey, I'm giving Natives money, and they're not capable of using that money for beneficial things. So look, white people, look at how they're doing things. Does that make sense? So it's like giving someone that has a drug problem money. What are they going to do with it? They're most likely to. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Because the people that are using this aren't the people who were good in school and were able to place into university to begin with. They were the people who weren't doing so good, and they need this extra help to get into university. So Natives
all you're doing is giving money to somebody with already existing bad habits, which
Natives still don't get a high percentage in their our college and universities. There's still a low percentage, regardless of what this special program to help them get in. So this is just immediately proving that we don't need this program, because it's not helping us. It's not benefiting us in any way.
Right.
And
I would be willing to bet that the Native Americans who have adopted and behaved in ways of, the greater Western Canadian culture, they probably disproportionately are more likely to place and go to college than than indigenous people who are more tied to their indigenous roots and aren't adopting modern culture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it really depends on the person, though. I mean, there's some people
I'm just
that are
saying
more
generally
cultural.
is my case. I would be willing to make that bet.
Yeah, there's more cultural people that can get that. It really depends. That's why we think of each other. We think of it as individuals. I'm an individual who can do right. We have so many services here. My dad even told me there was a one guy that he really wanted this. He put things together to have an AA meeting for Native American for indigenous people, and not one person showed up. They're still not showing up. So it's like, okay, how many times are you going to blame everyone else except for yourself? Because you're not the person that's actually pushing yourself to get help for your alcohol problem. You're not pushing yourself. And I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm not saying it's easy at all. But when you have a problem in your life, you have to stop blaming other people. You have to stop blaming the white guy or the government or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you have to push yourself the best you can because it's the only way you're going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
And that's why I feel like sometimes they don't get that. And I'm not trying to bash my community, but I guess it sounds like I am. But I feel like this is really important to say. We're always going out and saying, well, oh, poor us because of this. It's like, well, you know what you should look up to? You should look up to that guy that has put all of his time and effort to create an AA meeting for indigenous people, and not one person showed up.
And that's
think of him as an idol.
And here's something I don't get. You look at your Condes, you look at your Condes, your Kanyes, you look at your Candace Owens, you look at your Morgan Freemans, you look at successful black men, or even middle-class black men who are conservative, or who at least don't like this victimhood mentality. And why not ask them how they got to this place where they're at? Because they're successful, And if they're telling you, I got here by not looking at the past and not thinking myself as a victim, not doing this, not doing that, then that's probably good advice because they're telling you what worked for them. Now, it might not work for you, but like the last thing you would imagine people would do is go, no, you're just a sellout, you're giving into the white people, so they're giving you a leg up. It's like, no, they're not. It's a very... I brought up Morgan Freeman. Did you ever see that video where Morgan Freeman was being asked about Black History Month? Yeah. And they were like, he's like, I don't want a Black History Month. He's like, why not? He's like, is there a White History Month? Is there a Jewish History Month? And they're like, well, how do we end racism? And he's like, well, you stop calling me a black man and I'll stop calling you a white man. You call me Morgan Freeman and I'll call you whatever that guy's name was. And it's like, to me, it really is that simple. But my friends on the left will go, well, of course it's that simple to you because you're a white man. Or of course it's that simple to Morgan Freeman because he's a successful man, And it's like, well, he wasn't always a successful man. He was a poor dude growing up. He's talked about this. He just didn't see himself as a victim. He worked towards something and he got it. I think a lot of people don't want to work towards something. They just want, they see what they want. They're like, I want that thing. And they want you to give it to them,
Yeah. And I don't feel like that's another thing I don't understand. It's not just with race. It's like even fat acceptance, etc. There's always they always want someone to look up to that has those characteristics like that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why do you have to actually have a black person to look up to because you're black? Why can't you look up to someone's characteristics, not just the way they look? Look at their character. And I find that interesting. I've read several articles as well saying, well, I'm upset because I don't have a black woman that is a CEO to look up to because I want to be a CEO.
So
and I'm a black
woman. That CEO. Be that black CEO.
Yeah. Why do they need to look up to that specific person?
And who cares if they're black? Just find a CEO that you appreciate and go copy that person. They don't have to be.
But they don't think that way. They don't
emulate them. Like
they don't.
It doesn't make sense. When I was pretty left, I mean, still I appreciate Sheryl Sandberg. She's the COO of Facebook. I think she's somebody worth emulating in most regards. She's a very impressive woman. Just because I'm a man doesn't mean I can't look up to her. Half the people I look up, a little less than half the people I look up to are generally women, actually. What's wrong with that? Nothing. Nothing wrong with women looking up to men. Don't look up to people because of their gender or because of their race. Look up to people because of the thing that they've accomplished. Look, if you look up to somebody because they're black and you try to emulate them, the best you're going to be is black. That's fine. But if you look up to somebody because they're a great CEO and you try to emulate them, the best you could be is a great CEO. If you look up to somebody because they're a great musician and you try to emulate them, the best you could be is a great musician. I never understood this idea of trying to emulate somebody, choosing who to emulate based on their skin color. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And you don't even realize that's pretty privileged in its own self, is that like you have enough of a majority of you to actually find someone who is Black and who is a CEO, whereas someone like me, you know how hard it is to find a half Native American, half whatever, like person
so you're
fits
saying
my, you know,
on the privilege scale, Black people are like way more privileged than you are.
No, I wouldn't say
I'm not saying
it that way.
But in their model.
Well, they don't even see it that way. What they see it as is that they have the ability to actually pick who they have to look up to based on certain qualifications. Yet I can't fit that descriptor either. I can't look at someone and say, well, I'm upset that I can't find a half Micmac, half blah, 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 blah woman who is 27 years old and has this and this and that. Like, I can't find that. They are more likely to find someone that fits their characteristics than I am. And I find it really funny that they're pissed off and that they need to have someone that fits that characteristics of them.
Yep.
Instead of just looking at the person as who they are and going, yeah, I like how that person thinks, regardless of their skin color. And that's a great person to look up to. It's like, why aren't you looking at their accomplishments rather than their skin color? You have to look at skin color too.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's a wake-up call that I want to. So just because you find somebody who looks like you, is the same age, same gender, same race, all of that, and they did something cool, doesn't mean you can do it. Not at all. You know, there are plenty of, I'm about to be 30. There are plenty of 30-year-old white men who are multimillionaires. I'm not, you know? So, and the existence of multimillionaire white people doesn't increase my chance to be one. I need to go out and do something that produces value, that makes people want to give me their money so that I could be a multimillionaire. It's so this idea that like we need more female CEOs because then women will believe that they can be a CEO doesn't make sense to me, because it doesn't mean you can be a CEO just because there's another woman CEO. Like that has nothing to do with being a CEO, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because I've never, and that's what's going to break us down as well, because it's something that's so unrealistic. It's like, how the hell are you going to even reach that goal?
Right.
You have to believe in yourself, regardless of who you are on the outside, for crying out loud. And you have to look. I'm a big fan of Mary Tyler Moore. Do I friggin' look like her? Am I her same race and everything? Like, come on. I don't look at it that way. I don't care what color she is. I care about who she is as a person.
Right.
And that's what I look up to. I find it's pretty narcissistic in its own way to actually assume that you need someone that looks similar to you to get anywhere. It's like when there was that woman that was upset when she saw too many white people at her spin class. It's like
too many white people at her spin class.
Yeah, there was an article on Everyday Feminism where she was a spinning instructor, and she got mad. Well, she got upset when she saw all white people at a certain age range. It's like, well, first of all, how is this racist? Because no one's stopping you at the door for coming in because of your skin color, first of all. She didn't look at the larger picture, like what Jordan Peterson usually do, is like look at different factors. She doesn't think of demographics. She doesn't think of maybe the people of color at a different place or exercising at home. Who knows? And couldn't she think of it as, wait, if this was so racist, how the hell did I get a call saying, can you be the spinning instructor?
Right.
It's like, that makes absolutely no sense. And they can't think this way. And they're making it harder for people that
like if I was that spin class, if I owned that spin class, I'd be like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't have called you because there's too many white people. Like I shouldn't have called the black person instructor because there are too many white people in the class. Like, had I thought that would have been racist, you know what I mean? But that's kind of what she's pushing for.
Yeah, she's being more racist, actually, because she's actually caring about the people's skin color rather than the fact that she actually got the freaking job at the first place. It's like, well, it's like, if it was so racist, you wouldn't have been called, honey. Like,
right.
So I just find it really funny how people think this way, and they can't. And if anyone even tries to question their way of thinking, you're immediately slammed.
Right.
It's like, why is that the case? Like, why can't I have a decent conversation with a leftist?
It's very hard because I think a lot of emotions driving that ideology. Okay, so you had mentioned to me you're reading Jordan Peterson's book, right? 12 Rules for Life.
Yeah.
So how far are you in that?
I think I'm on chapter 4. I haven't read it in a while because I was so busy.
Yeah.
But I would like to talk a bit about it because, well, funny thing as well. I don't know if anyone saw this, but I'm going to add it here. Someone took a picture of a guy on the subway reading the book, and
reading
went
12 Rules.
Yeah,
Nice.
and went, oh look, a guy reading. Oh wait.
Oh, I did see that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, cute guy reading. Oh wait, and then was there like a connotation of racism or something?
No, more like, oh God, he's reading Jordan Peterson book.
Oh, he's reading Jordan Peterson. Yeah.
Like, oh, he's reading a self-help book. Why are you angry that a guy's trying to better his life? First of all, that's kind of weird.
Well, yeah, but they associate Jordan. People think Jordan Peterson's like some alt-right neo-Nazi, which is insane. But,
and they can't, and that's what frustrates me. Is like, this guy's actually reading the book, actually seeing for himself. And I'm glad that even people that disagree with him should read the book.
right.
Doesn't mean they should buy it, but like maybe get it from a friend.
I have a copy of the Communist Manifesto. Not because I'm a communist. I'm the furthest thing from a communist. But you should be able to read the things you don't agree with.
Exactly. And that's what Jordan Peterson's saying as well. And I find that really funny. And while I'm reading it, I'm thinking, well, first of all, he's more religious than I. But that doesn't stop me from reading the book. And he says a lot of interesting points as well. Is this something that, how do I explain it? There's one thing that really resonated with me is that, like, we even spoke about this too, John. We talked about how you can't just dwell on things too much, especially with your anxiety, because you're going to think of something so harsh, like you're going to keep thinking about it, and something's going to pile onto it. And it's good to like have, like, we have these emotions, but we can't let it consume us.
Right.
And you know what? Another thing that got me with Jordan Peterson is that he has suffered from depression problems, and he still gets anxiety in the mornings, just like I do. And he gets those feelings that, while explaining them, I get them too.
Right.
That's why I'm taking the book in stride. I'm not reading it in fully. I'm taking my time reading it, because there's something about it that I have to take my time.
Yeah. I have a feeling you're going to see people using 12 Rules as a kind of guide to their life. Like, they're probably going to, I can almost see there's going to be like a short abridged version of like, did you fail any of these today? You know, I see it happening.
Even when we think about his diet, for instance, I don't completely agree with his diet and his daughter's diet, for example. I think it's amazing that it works for them, and I think people should try it just to see if it works for them. But not everyone's going to benefit from it, because everyone's different. Everyone's body's different, and when it comes to the self-help book, like his book, for instance, it might not help other people, but it's good to read it and try to understand it. Maybe it won't help certain people. Maybe those rules aren't really beneficial for them. Right. I mean, we can't really say he's not like Jesus or something, but like,
or is he? He is a clinical psychologist for the last 30 years. Who took his practice very seriously.
Exactly.
So I do find it interesting when a clinical psychologist who clearly takes his craft seriously and his advice seriously and everything that he says. I mean, you see him process in real time. It's amazing the way he can articulate. He's got something to share, and then some Joe Schmo who took like a sociology 101 course, who knows nothing about human psychology, is like, I don't trust him. It's like, okay, you don't have to, but I don't trust you because you're just some Joe Schmo who took a class once. You know, this guy's published. He's PhD. He's a Dr. Jordan Peterson, right? He's very well published. Wrote a whole book explaining his worldview that he worked on for over a decade. Like, people spend all this time and energy, yet I'm not supposed to take Peterson seriously, but I'm supposed to take the girl on her knees with blue hair crying at the sky seriously. Something a little strange to me there.
Yeah, and that's why I don't get how people completely dismiss him, is that a lot of people who still, like, if you're if you're like years into this whole Jordan Peterson thing and you still think he's transphobic, I feel sorry for you, because you're actually someone that actually didn't care to learn from him and actually at least listen to something.
Right.
It's like you can't take the time to at least try to understand how he sees things, or at least listen to maybe one video at least. Come on. And then
you saw that tweet that I shared, right? I didn't provide too much context, but these people are arguing on Twitter, and this guy goes, well, I don't care what he means. His words were blank, blank, blank. And it's like, this is what we're dealing with. Like, people read words and context just doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter that Jordan Peterson means ABC. If I hear XYZ and I think that's exactly what it means, then that's it. Done. End of argument.
Yeah.
People are oddly self-aware of this, because this guy who didn't seem to be trolling. He was I took him as very authentic. He's just like, his point was, it doesn't matter what what I think it was Peterson. It doesn't matter what he means, because he said. It's just amazing.
I find it amazing too.
Thinking Jordan Peterson is transphobic is, you literally have to never have listened to any of his thoughts, you know what I mean, around that matter.
Or they just took it out of context, like completely out of context.
Right.
Because for me, even with someone I totally disagree with, unless they're like really saying something like, I hate these people, it's like, okay, well then, that's nothing really to kind of get into. But Jordan Peterson says things. He even thinks about it before he says it. And he says things so articulately. And he actually really says it in the most, it's not even that complex. It's like, there's not much room for you to like try to search for things. Like, it's not a needle in a haystack. It's there, for crying out loud. And people still take it differently. And that just goes to show how they really feel. What I want to say is that what I don't get is that while he's helping a lot of people, I feel like, you know how like if you're depressed and you don't want to help, that's how I feel how some people are. And it's not like I'm pretty sure they maybe need, yeah, like, and that's what they feel about Jordan Peterson. Is like, just Jordan Peterson is actually trying to help people. He's not just like, sure, people are saying, oh yeah, he's just saying these things. It's like, well, right. No, he actually, if he really only cared about himself, he would make a book about himself, like a biography or something. No, he made a self-help book. So that just goes to show that's
and there are countless people, and he cries about this very literally. Like, he cries where they come up to him and they're like, man, your lectures have changed my life. I feel so much like I have purpose, like I have something I'm working towards. Some people said that they were in pretty dark places, and now they're not, because they felt that Jordan Peterson understood something about them and pulled them out of it. And, this is typical kind of stuff you would hear from like religious cults and stuff too. But it's like, there's some validity to it. Why would he be the number one most read book across all of Amazon, number one best-selling self-help book for so many months now? If it meant nothing, like, other people see it and they're like, well, it's because people are gullible, or because people, you know what I mean? But it's like, sure, but aren't we all? In the same week, the top books were like that book about Donald Trump called Fire and Fury, and Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Those two were simultaneously the top sellers. You couldn't have people on more opposite spectrums. You get what I'm saying? Like, here you have, he's not even conservative, but his audience seems to be much more conservative. Jordan Peterson. And then on the other side, you have Fire and Fury, which who's reading that. It's like all the liberals who hate Trump. So this idea that his ideas have no merit, well, I guess they wouldn't say that because they don't believe in merit, but this idea that Jordan Peterson's ideas are dangerous or ill-informed or anything like that is crazy to me, because they would never apply that to their own ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And what I don't get as well, as someone who suffers from anxiety and all this stuff, a lot of the left does have these things, and they talk about it endlessly. It's like, I have anxiety, I have autism, I have depression, I have all these things. But why would they even if they disagree with him on his politics, wouldn't they at least applaud the fact that people have felt much better after reading his book?
Yeah.
That's what I don't get. And that's when it comes back to, do people really care that if you actually feel better? Or is it more of like, let's stay victims forever? Because like, wouldn't you be happy as someone who suffers themselves? Wouldn't you be happy that there's people out there reading something and actually benefiting from it and improving their lives? So that's pretty interesting to think about.
I agree. Yeah. So I'm curious, when it comes to Jordan Peterson, is there anything that you've learned from his books or lectures, etc., that you've personally started implementing in your life?
That's a good question.
Do you make your bed?
Actually, the funny thing is I have to make my bed. But I know, like, sometimes my room is dirty and stuff. But one of the things that actually benefited me was how I looking at things not just like with one way of thinking. And that's one of them. The second thing is a lot of his psychology work has helped me endlessly.
Like what?
When he talks about borderline and anxiety, even when he talks about depression, that has really helped me. It's something about, I wouldn't say exact quotes, but like the way he puts it out there that you can't, you're in this life right now, and I'm not quoting him perfectly, but
yeah, you're paraphrasing. Go ahead.
Yeah. The idea he put out there that you're in this life right now, and it's your responsibility. And he talks a lot about responsibility. He says it's your responsibility to do what you can to better yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his stuff is like a fatherly advice. That's why so many people look up to him, because it's like, grow up, get yourself in order.
Yeah, I think that's
get your life in order.
The role he's playing. He's the dad of the internet.
Yeah, and a lot of these things and that's what I noticed as well when I was on the left. I did get insulted by people saying grow up and all this stuff, but now I don't get insulted by it, and I think that's why they don't like him, because yeah, exactly, and I think they don't like him because of that, because he's so direct when he talks about this.
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't want to face their truth, like their facts, like in front of them. They don't want to face these things.
Right.
And that's how they're not going to get any better, is if they don't face these things. And that's what he talks about as well. He talks about facing things. So that's just something that really got to me. So yeah, I agree with certain political views of his, not all of them, but the psychology aspect of it, he has helped me endlessly with that, especially with the borderline personality disorders, that I have these situations. But it's like, he doesn't say like don't give up, for crying out loud. That's what he's saying. Don't give up. You'll have bad times. Like, for instance, you can go through life, make a mistake, and you feel like everything's shut down. It's like, no, just keep going at it. Stop feeling sorry for yourself at that moment because you missed your gym day or something. Go out there and do it the next day.
Yeah.
It's like he has like the most
obvious,
common sense. Yeah. And I'm not trying to sound like rude about it. It's like he has the most commonsensical things to say. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is things that I already believed in or already thought of in my head. It's just that I never actually implemented them in my life.
Right. So what's one thing you want to implement in your life that you haven't yet?
The health aspect. I definitely agree with him on there. It's like you have to treat your body, because it's true. If you don't treat your body with respect, you're not really respecting yourself. Mm-hmm. And how do you expect people to respect you when you don't respect yourself? So that's why eating right and exercising is important, because you're giving your body what you should feel like you deserve.
It's what your body craves.
Yeah. So if you drink and smoke, for instance, and you just eat a bunch of crap, you're giving the impression on your body that that's what you deserve. So that's one thing I need to work on.
Yeah.
I think I've been improving with how people view me as well. So that has gotten so much better. I don't look at look at me right now. I'm talking to you at this very moment. I have a YouTube channel, and I literally told you before that I don't like when people talk to you. Well, I know you, but when people I don't like it when people look at me. I still don't, to be perfectly honest. But it's so much better than what I was years ago. And I have to thank Jordan Peterson for that, but at the same time, I have to thank myself because I pushed myself to get out there and make a YouTube channel and to look at the bunch of people that hate me or like me or anything and just put myself out there and just do what I feel is right for me.
And look, you're not dead. You went out there, and I think that's most of it. You know, people are deathly afraid of public speaking, but I think the way you get better at it is by doing it and realizing you don't die. And 9 out of 10 times, it's not as bad as you thought it would be. Every now and then, it's going to be awful, right? You're going to go out there and you come back and be like, oh my God, I messed up everything. But it almost is never as bad as you thought it would be. Like, would you say that's true for the YouTube thing? Like, have you ever gotten any, has anything happened that's as bad as you imagined? Like the worst that you've imagined?
I think the worst I imagined was people making fun of me and like universally like posting things that I wrote.
So now that's gonna happen if you start getting more known. But here's my prediction: is they're gonna get really mad at you. You're gonna hate it. You're gonna cry. You're gonna want to get off Twitter for a few days or whatever it is. But then you're gonna come out of it and you're gonna look back on it and you're gonna be like, wait a minute. Those guys are just assholes. And now you're going to be better equipped for the next time somebody tries to make fun of you. I think the first time you have that really harsh public humiliation, right? And you survive it, you continue on as a person who now all of your interactions with the public are very different because you've been humiliated before. Like the worst you've been humiliated is probably about here, right? And you know what that feels like, and you're trying to prevent people from humiliating you to that point again because it didn't feel good. But when you get humiliated up here, the people who are here seem like nothing anymore. You're like, I can ignore those people. But that used to be your limit. You know what I mean? It's kind of just exposure therapy. You've been exposed to something harsher, so the less harsh thing feels like nothing.
I've already had so many people like say things to me, and a bunch of people like dogpile me or something like and say all this crap about me, and you know it hurts a bit, but it's not as bad as like me just like I don't give up. And that's another thing that Jordan Peterson, what I like about him is that it's true. I refuse to give up on what I'm doing, and you know why? And that's why I like Jordan Peterson, because he sticks up for what he believes in, and he's not afraid to talk about it. He wasn't afraid to go up in front of people and say, "This is how I feel," and he's not afraid to listen to other people and try to learn from them either. And that's very respectable. It's something commendable, and it's such a great thing to look at. Yeah. The fact that there's so many things that have happened to him over the years, and he doesn't walk out and just says, "Let me just quit this completely." He's like, no, he stands up for what he believes in. That's what a true hero does, and I want to do the same thing. This is why I'm not quitting my YouTube channel, because some people don't like me. I've been called so many things under the sun so far that are not true. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't like it when people
responding to it gives it validity.
One of my pet peeves is I don't like when people say what I am and make up this bullshit lies about me. Right. And I just realized a lot of people I look up to are still constantly told these lies. They're called the alt-right and all this crap.
Oh yeah.
Like, no,
I mean,
Jordan Peterson is not alt-right.
If somebody you and I will never articulate as well as Jordan Peterson. I mean, maybe, but it's possible that we will never be as articulate and as thoughtful and as effective with our speech as Jordan Peterson. And even he has lies told about him all the time, and people smearing him and people literally surrounding him and banging on windows. And so the idea, like, get that idea out of your head right now. If you think that you're going to go into this and people aren't, and you're going to talk about similar things and people aren't going to lie about you and say mean things, you're deluded. You know, just throw that away, because if it happens to people like Peterson and Brett Weinstein, even, you know, who I think is a much Peterson's got a bit of a temper, you know. Brett Weinstein has no temper at all. That guy is so calm, and it happens to him. So
yeah, but
there's like no way around it.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson definitely has you can tell in his face, but he still composes himself like in a respectful manner. Considering all the stuff he's been through, I can't believe like that moment when he got pissed off on Twitter, I don't remember if everyone realizes that when the guy insulted his friend.
Oh yeah, and he called him a son of a bitch.
Yeah, it was so funny because I imagined him like I hate this so me, but I actually imagined that like I actually imagined him getting angry and tweeting this and crying and stuff, and I felt bad for kind of, but he cries all the time though.
Well, but he happy cries, you know, he or worry cries. He doesn't seem to angry cry. That one was interesting too because he was standing up for his friend, but yeah, I could picture it, and you know, I seen him behave on stage with this. Him and Stephen Fry did an a debate recently, and his opponent called him an angry white man or something.
Oh yeah,
and Peterson reacted to that, and the guy was like, "You see that hurt that you're feeling?" He's like, "I'm not hurt. I'm appalled." You know, and I think that's what it is. It's being appalled. It's being, you know. So, and then yeah, he got a little angry when he called the guy a son of a bitch.
But actually, what I don't like about the people who dislike Jordan Peterson is that they find, and that's true with everything. When people dislike someone, they try to find any possible reason to prove how bad the person is. So the minute Jordan Peterson gets upset, they have to go, "Oh, well, look at him. He's such a. You guys look up to this guy." It's like, well, you don't think, is it like weird to not look up to someone who's human? Like, right. It's kind of strange that you're like that pisses people off, and they have to find a reason. It's like, what the hell? He's not a robot, crying out loud. He's a human being.
Ooh, Gabriel.
That has feelings.
Somebody spoke in the chat, and they said true. So Gabriel agrees with something that we've said. I'm not sure exactly which thing it was. That's fine.
I'm sad that I didn't get any questions this time.
Yeah, we didn't. So yeah, we're going to be wrapping up. So if anybody has questions, ask them right now, because you know there's a little bit of a delay. So ask them right now, and if we see them before we disconnect, I'll certainly try to answer it. But you know, let's actually begin to wrap up. We covered a lot of stuff. You know, thank you so much, Amanda, for coming onto the show, because this is a long time coming. We talked about it, I think, a few weeks ago, and then just stuff got in the way, and here we finally are. I always am interested in hearing about people's kind of journey from like where they once were to where they are now. Whether I don't care about the direction. You know, I had somebody recently criticize me saying that he used to think the way I think, and he was wrong. That's his, you know. So now he's transitioned more left, and hell, I would love to have him on the show if he's down. I doubt it, but I'll actually reach out to him this week and find out now that I talked about it. You know, I didn't name him or anything, but no, I always like kind of hearing that story. And thank you for sharing yours. Is there any kind of like advice that you would like to leave my audience?
Well, I'm not as good at leaving advice as Jordan Peterson is.
Well, yeah, well,
I do this a lot. There's people that come up to me that want to start their YouTube channel as well, and they want to. They're too afraid to speak up about things, as I am. And I tell them, just do it. Just do it. No,
just
seriously.
do it.
Go out there and push yourself, because there's, like Jordan Peterson said, there's nothing more powerful than articulate speech.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, it's nothing more powerful than actually for yourself than actually going out there and standing up for what you believe in. Right. And I think it's really important that no matter where you are, you're a human being. Your feelings are valid to a certain extent, and the facts are as well. And you go out there and you be who you are. That's right. All I can really say.
Yeah, and don't stop others from doing the same, because then, yeah, I think if you try to stop other people from being who they are, what's to stop them from stopping you?
Yeah, exactly.
And Peterson's whole mantra.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is that no matter where you are in life, just keep pushing yourself, because that's the most important thing. Because we all, like, it sounds morbid, but we all die at one point, and there's nothing better than
not if I can help it.
There's nothing better than just doing what you need to do in life and challenge yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna feel a reward, you know.
Yeah, So keep challenging yourself, keep on pushing. And Gabriel said, I just found this channel. It seems interesting. How did you find this channel? That's what I would like to know.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I did advertise in a few places. I posted on Reddit. I posted on my Twitter, my Facebook, but that's already like people who know me. So chances are good if they didn't follow before. Well, maybe they will follow now, seeing that I'm producing more content. But I do want to know, yeah, and follow. So let's do that. And then maybe Gabriel will tell us where he found this channel, because that's awesome. Make sure to subscribe to me down below. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell button, because that makes you get notified when I post new content. And I'm trying to do more of these interviews. The more people there are, the more feedback I'll get, the better this show will get, I promise. And also subscribe to Amanda. Her stuff is in the description below. Actually, you know what's funny is I don't think I put your YouTube channel. I put your Twitter, your Instagram, and your blog, but I didn't put your YouTube channel. So, you know, if you're watching this later, not live, I will have updated the description to have her YouTube channel in there as well. Or you could search Amanda Miranda. It rhymes. Or you can find her
on my Twitter, because I have my YouTube channel on Twitter.
There you go. Her Twitter is Miranda_Amanda, which is confusing because it's backwards, right? But it's Miranda_Amanda.
Yeah, I was trying to get the Amanda Miranda. I just couldn't get it. That's my the asterisk thing. And then
you could actually change your username, and it'll keep your account. Like the username.
Yeah, I kind of like the 9 though. Oh, my username is just Amanda Miranda with a kissy face. So.
No, but I'm saying no. You could change your @username to Amanda Miranda.
Oh, okay.
If you want it, and it won't affect your followers or anything. Okay. Just a suggestion. But yeah, so follow her on Twitter. He said that I searched for Jordan Peterson on YouTube and clicked at date instead of, wow. So he was searching Jordan Peterson, saw this live stream and tuned in. That's awesome. Well, I hope you'll subscribe. And if you wouldn't mind, I don't know how long you were here for, but give me some feedback, maybe some ideas on some interviews you'd like to see in the future. It's not like I'm only going to do Jordan Peterson stuff. My interests are broad. So that would be awesome. But anyway, yeah. So again, thank you. Gabriel said the problem is that a lot of channels hijack this content and use, his content. So he's happy he found a genuine channel that is actually talking about Peterson. Yeah, no, it's true. I've seen stuff like that where it's just like they'll tag Jordan Peterson and then the thing has nothing to do with Jordan Peterson. He's mentioned once throughout and you're like, I'm so confused. Yeah, so thank you again for being on the show, Amanda. And
no problem. I enjoyed being here.
Yeah, and people should know that I was once on your channel, so they can check out that 4-hour-long discussion if they want. But yeah, so good night, everybody. Until next time. Peace.